What up, guys? Craig, Fergie Time. Today I have an exciting show. Send It Rubi. She just came back from King of Hammers and she did the race. She's going to talk about just different things that got her into racing, what it took to set it up, and some behind the scenes race info and how to get into racing and just all that great stuff. So hope you get something out of it. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks, guys. Guys, Fergie Time. We're back with Send It Rubi. I'm really excited to chat with you and get to know you a little bit better. We've been chatting a little bit online. I have my Send It for Jesus hoodie that I rock. Introduce yourself, say hi, just a little bit about yourself, how you got started in off-roading and that kind of cool stuff.
I'm Send It Rubi. I live in St. George, Utah. I got started in off-road 2020. I've had Jeep for like 5 years at that point, but other than, different wheels, tires, sound system, and exhaust, like that was, I built mall crawlers basically, and I didn't build them. And I got a 2020 diesel JL Ruby, and COVID happened, and I was in Nebraska at the time. So there's a place in Kansas called Tuttle Creek that I joined the local Jeep page because I wanted to make friends, and started an Instagram because I was a contractor that was a fashion blogger. So I wanted something like, I didn't want to put car stuff on that. So I started a Jeep page just to make friends. The local Jeep club went to Tuttle Creek and I got the bug. And there's a guy there that the first time I went, we're still friends to this day. He actually just came out for New Year's. His name's Shane. He took me wheeling, and he's actually the one that named me Send It, because my strategy when I first started wheeling was all skinny pedal. Like, I didn't want to roll. I didn't want anything bad to happen. So I thought I'll just drive as hard and fast as I can up stuff, which is not the greatest strategy. It was like Princess, lead foot, and then just Send It. A little bit after that, I met up with Rockstar Garage during the first round of Great American Crawl, and Holly Fowler was filming one of her videos, and I'm coming down the hill, and my
Mischief
Maker. My initial IG handle was Ruby and Red, because being on the internet, I know like privacy is cool, and I've had some not great interactions, so nobody knew what like my actual name was, and Holly assumed my name was Ruby. So it's what I go by now 99.9% of the time. Like, even my mom calls me Ruby. Yeah, she called me Ruby in her video. And so everybody thought my name was Ruby. From then on out, I've been Ruby, and we Send It. And I'm a fabricator. I just raced King of Hammers like 2 weeks ago in a car that I built myself. I'm married. We've got 4 kids, 2 dogs, and a tortoise. And my husband, Send It Joe, as a lot of you know him, he's a wild Toyota man, and he's like Rain Man when it comes to anything with a motor. It could be a tractor, a helicopter, airplane, vintage car. He knows the motor, the trans, the pros, the cons. He's just brilliant when it comes to all things cars, and he's just taught me so much.
I thought your name was Ruby.
Yeah, everybody does. I don't usually like tell people it's not.
Yeah, let's talk about King of Hammers. So I've known about King of Hammers, but I didn't really know about King of Hammers. And I have to admit, I watch every day, like when it started to when it ended.
Yeah.
And I watched your race, and I saw when you took off. I didn't realize how long that race was.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I kept looking for you, but they would go to all these, there's so many different racers and all that. So just, I guess before you get into the actual race experience, just what made you decide you wanted to even do that?
So I went to KOA 2021. I slept in a tent a few of the nights. The other days I drove like 2 hours each way from like where I was living. I still feel this. I can't watch people do that race, a lot of races, but this race specifically, and not feel like I have to do that. And I don't understand how people can watch that and not be like, yes, I want to do that. I got the bug, and I said, one day I'm going to do this. I had no idea that when I did it, it would be in a car that I built, and like had the journey that we did to get there. I watched it, and I couldn't not do it. Like, I've always been a competitor. I was a sponsored skier from age 12, like through early adult. Downhill, like my first sponsor when I was 12 was Power Bar. Back in the day, they were really into skiing, and I skied for some really good schools and traveled and had the main companies, if you will, like Rosignol and Vocal and those guys over the years. So I've competed in like things like CrossFit and running and biking and stuff over the years. I just need something to compete in. I had no racing experience as far as car stuff. Like my family, like my mom is so against it. And it's funny because she has never watched my content and she watched the entire live stream. Nice. And like gave me a perfect recap and now is like, I'm going to Hammers next year. And she actually, my mom started chemo like the day before my race. It's heavy. She's got breast cancer, but I just feel like
I'm sorry.
It's got her, like she's excited for the race season now. And like, it's weirdly something we're bonding over because she's been against anything with a motor my entire life. That's like racing for you. Like it brings people you don't expect together and just the family you get because of racing and off-road in general. I got the bug and, you know, it took us a few years to get there, but
2021, you decided, oh man, this is cool. I want to do this. When did you start planning?
So my initial plan was, I'll just race my JL. My JL would not qualify for stock class because it's so built and it's so nice.
So the race you did was...
Yeah.
What was it?
I did the stock class. I did the Everyman Challenge. My
Everyman,
class is the 4600 class, which is the stock class. They had to do at least 1,000 vehicles in that production. I raced a 97 TJ. It originally started with a 2.5 and it was a sport, super, you know, basic, open, all the things. So you have to maintain your wheelbase within 3 inches. If it's a straight axle, you have to keep it a straight axle. If it's a shock and coil, you have to stay with a shock and coil. So my class is a straight axle. I put 1 tons under it. It's shock and coil. So I have rock crawler coils. And then I have Bilstein shocks with a reservoir. You can't run a bypass. The shock body has to be 2.65 in diameter or smaller. You can go as tall as you want. So you could do like a 7-inch lift or something dumb, but that would be silly and not very stable. So my Jeep has a 4.5-inch lift. My motor is
they
a 4.0.
They don't limit the lift or tire size?
No, not the lift, just tire size they do. So it's a DOT 35-inch tire. So my current race tires are a BFG and we call them BF Smalls because BFGs, DOT tires, people may not know this, if it says it's 35, it has to be 35 inches or smaller. It can't be any bigger. So my BFG measures at 33.51 inch, which is not a very big tire, especially to do a race like that. It has to be a 35-inch DOT for that class. Other classes can go to a 37. The King's race, which is unlimited, they can do whatever tire size they want. But the King's race, you have to qualify for, and it's like a separate day, and it's unlimited everything. It's a pretty wild competitive class to be in. In my race car, I have an AX15 transmission because that was also available when that Jeep was made. It's a manual. You can put whatever transfer case you want, but like the transmission and the engine have to be available for that make, body, style model.
Wow. So did you pick the vehicle specifically for that race?
I picked the TJ because they're in abundance and they're pretty cheap. I already had so many relationships for Jeep partnerships that like getting parts. I picked the TJ because I think we paid $3,000 for the TJ. And then I bought 3 TJs in various forms to build the race car because I needed the better engine. And I actually found a Jeep that had the engine and trans that I wanted, but it had no axles under it, but it was cheaper than buying just the motor. And I originally I had a TJ tub and I was going to do a 4500 car, which is in between like unlimited and my stock class. It's really competitive and way more money. Like you need an LS or some sort of bigger horsepower. It's just a rougher class for your first race. Tons of people do it. I'm in racing quite a bit. I've been tracking races with racing tracks. I've been going, I've been hosting, talked to so many people and they're like, stock class. And I'm a big believer too, like when I first started wheeling, that first year I wheeled on stock axles in either 35s or 37. And I feel like that makes you a solid driver, starting small. And then, you know, I like to build things once. I mean, a lot of people don't, but buy once, cry once is my theory, and just get good on less. Big horsepower complicates things and can actually, like, you can be a good driver, if you will. You can do a lot with big horsepower and big axles. Having that foundation skill set wise, I think is so important. So that was a big motivator to see if I like love it, if I can hang, and if I can do the race on 33.5-inch tires and limited horsepower, I will be more successful as I progress.
So you got in there, you went racing, you took off. How were you doing?
So I lost my power steering lines the second lap in a rock course called Aftershock. But before that, it was kind of crazy. So my co-driver, his name is Rich Bursch,
someone was actually in there with you?
Yeah, you have to. Certain classes you can be a single seat, but not in stock class. So you have a co-driver who's like your navigator, and they also get out and help with winching and if you need like spotting, etc. So my co-driver races in the UTV class, and he raced the day before and he got hurt. So all of our practice and preparation and everything is gone because I don't have him. And like even down to the navigation, you know, he had a head injury. He got me the iPad that we have for the navigation because we were using his, and he loaded the maps in, but we didn't have any notes or anything. So my co-driver, his name online is Golden Sadies. His name is Bryce. He races a vintage diesel Mercedes in the Hoop DX class. He just so happened to have all his race gear with him. I found out Rich got hurt and he just kind of appeared like 20 minutes later. He was one of two people that I thought would be a really great fit because having the platform that I do and the community that I have, everybody was willing to jump in. Like I had groups of people coming to my pit being like, we'll co-drive. And they're all great choices, but you're in a car 10 to 14 plus hours, depending on where you start.
Is that how long the race is?
Yeah. So you line up at 6:15 and then stock classes in the back. So they launched everybody at 8. They do them 2 by 2 every, I think 30 or 60 seconds. So it was like 45 minutes later by the time I started. And then the race times out at 6 and then you have adjusted time. So my adjusted time would have been 6:40, like that I could finish. Mm-hmm. So anyways, it's a long day. It's a crazy race. It's 133 miles, 136, and it was the hardest course they've ever done. Bryce and I have never wheeled together. We've never been in a car together. And we got all of his stuff teched, and I went to bed, and he and Joe went over the car to make sure things were set up the way that would work for him too. And the next morning, we lined up what was going to be. And, he was a good dude, and I trusted him, and that's why, I put him in that position. And I had a talk with my mom that morning, and she was just like, she's neurotic, and she's like I said, she doesn't like this. And she was so calm, and she was just like, no, I just feel in my heart you're going to be great and you're going to do awesome. And she was like, you're going to finish. And that calmed me so much. So I'm just like, we're just going to have fun, dude. We're just going wheeling. At the start, he's like, you're going to be dying at the start. Like everybody says, you're going to die at the start. I was so excited to just do it. 21, I said I wanted to do this. I started building my car in 22. We built it in 55 days, the first rendition. Decided not to race. Last year, I broke my humerus racing motos. Joe broke his leg after we tore everything off the car first week of December. And had surgeries and stuff. So with that prep, we missed it again. I didn't have the seat time. I got approved to race. I didn't have any seat time, so I opted to not race. And then this year we pre-ran and we did all the things. So third time's the charm, if you will. It's been 4 years in the making. I was as ready as I was gonna be. Yeah, we took off and it was awesome. I've never been so calm wheeling. I was either focused or just stoked. And a lot of the stuff that we did was crazy. Just even some of the goat trails, it's very rugged, rocky ridges with what you would bring mountain goats up, not drive your car. Single lane, and then I have these big horsepower cars trying to come up behind me, and it was crazy. I literally would have done it again next week if they let me do it again. Especially my first lap, I was very slow. We didn't pre-run the desert a lot because we just wanted to keep the car together. Rich put me through paces of desert, of steep stuff, of rocks, and he just wanted to see how the car did and how I was doing. And then we just opted to keep the car on track. And because he raced the day before, he did the same course. We were counting on that, so I didn't know what to expect, and Bryce didn't get to race the day before, so I was concerned about keeping the car together and preserving it. So I was slower, and then next lap I kicked it up quite a bit. I was almost an hour faster than the previous lap. So, and I don't there's things in the car we're gonna change. I did not have enough shock. I knew that going into the race. Have new shocks that are happening now, and because I did this race, I'm gonna be redoing my suspension and a bunch of other stuff, and there's partners that have reached out to me, whether I worked with them or new ones, that are like, hey, you did the work, you stuck with it, you did exactly what you said you were going to do, and a lot of people would have given up, and you made it pretty darn far. We want you to finish or better. So what can we do to support you? That's really cool. My car is all in like 25 grand, and a lot, like the top 3 spots in my class were all Broncos, and they're like 250 plus.
Wow.
So there's a
what do you get if you win?
There's cash. I don't know what it was. You get the title of saying you won, and then in the racer space, there's something called contingency. So every partner that I work with, based off of how you place, they give you X amount of dollars. So if you're like a pro driver, like at the level of like Bailey Campbell, like you're fully sponsored, you have all these big companies, they get on the box, which is like 1, 2, or 3. You get money from everybody. And then also, like, depending on how you work your contract, if you just finish, or if you say, you know, I'm going to get on the box or top 10 this many times, and you meet that metric, they'll give you extra money. The race
So that's how racers make
that's
a
how
living.
we make money, yeah. And we get money too, also, like, just, you know, some people get it monthly, some people get it a lump sum annually, some contracts we do quarterly. You get paid in varying increments depending on the contract and the relationship. Winning a race is what gets you more money the rest of the year, but typically a race pot isn't crazy money. Like King of Hammers is usually a pretty big pot, but a lot of them it's like 5 grand. It costs you more to do the race than that.
I saw the King's race. I watched that.
Yeah.
And the guy that was first, like towards the end of the last lap, somebody was second and had to get out and change his tire, and then the person that was third passed them both and won, and it was crazy.
So if you get a flat, you change it. Sometimes you're just changing it like you're driving quite a bit on a flat because there's no good place to do it. I didn't have any flats, which is like really not common. I came back on all 4 that I left on, but I was also like trying to be conservative because I didn't want to have to change the tire, and you know, tires are expensive. There's other races that I plan on doing fairly soon, and I just felt really great about everything we had done so far. I didn't want to like add, I mean, yes, racing wise, like sure, whatever it takes, but I'd had a great day so far. We had already gone pretty far, you know, like 1 lap is a 1 lap finish in this race. I just opted to call it where it was at, because even if I did fix it and I get further up, that's a really crappy place to break. I still had to get the car out of aftershock, which driving down aftershock with no power steering, like my hand still hurts. It's really rough. I'm a very fit, strong person, and Bryce was like, let me drive. He felt bad because it's literally ripping the steering wheel out of your hands with these big rocks and no power steering at all. What a lot of people do, which I didn't know this till like a couple days before the race, a lot of people have co-drivers that are also drivers. Like if you're a registered driver, you technically can hop in, because a lot of my friends that race, I mean, they're way bigger budget teams than I am. They're like, you're crazy, you're gonna drive the whole day. And I'm like, well, isn't that what you do? And they're like, no. Like they all have other people that drive other parts, and then they do like the really hard or like the glory part. Typically it's like the really technical stuff, like the rock section, they'll all hop in. And I just thought that was crazy. I was like, I thought you all just drove the whole race. To drive as much as I did, with all I did was a glamour pit. In the infield, we called it a glamour pit because I got out of the race car to use the facilities and to have a snack. Most people don't leave their car all day. Fun fact, people, when you're racing, you wear a catheter.
Oh my
gosh. A lot of people don't know that. So I didn't want to do that.
No, I don't blame you.
Like Nemesis Industries pitted for us on the infield at the Maxis pit. They were laughing at me. What are you, Levi Shirley? He's an excellent driver. Levi does glamour pits too. He doesn't like to stay in the car for everything, which I don't blame him. So we nicknamed it the glamour pit. You know, I got out and jumped around for a minute and did my thing and had a half of a Coke Zero, and then we sent it. By the time we got back to camp, because we lost steering, I had to go down, and then the crew on the trail were like, oh, you can self-recover, but I had race course maps. I didn't have like Johnson Valley map. The bypasses are goat trails typically, and you have no steering trying to do rocks and steep, and I couldn't do it. Bryce thankfully had his cell phone, and we busted out OnX. They're an awesome partner. We're super thankful for the service, because literally if it wasn't for OnX, we wouldn't have been able to see all these other roads that are not like technically trails and piece enough together to find our way back to camp. I broke at 4. We got back to camp at 8, and initially they said we couldn't go to pit 2, so I bypassed pit 2 and thought I was going to get fuel second lap or in pit 1. Well, pit 1 didn't have any fuel for me. And then I didn't make it to pit 2 the second time because I broke right outside of it. So I didn't add fuel all day. And at this point, it's dark, it's getting cold, and like we can't quite talk to Joe because the comms don't work everywhere. Like if you're in a valley, like he was trying to find us based off of the signal, like how good he could hear us to get us fuel, and we just couldn't connect. Thankfully, I have a 33-gallon fuel cell. We didn't run out of gas. Other than that, it was literally perfect. We were there like 2 weeks. Every interaction was so good. I committed to doing this. 22, Hammers 23, I was supposed to race, missed it. 24, missed it. This year, people are like, oh, are you going to race Hammers? Like, it was like a joke. Like, oh, you're going to race Hammers? Okay, Ruby. And the fact that I showed up in a car and like I pre-ran and I ran and I did hard things, a lot of people were coming up to me and saying like, you put in work and you didn't give up when other people would have. And, I see what you've done. And even before I raced, they just treated me like they respected me, and just like that tone in our interactions, and just like they were rooting for me and like believed, and were just talking to me like, yeah, you're gonna finish. And it was so cool. I'm so thankful. It was just a beautiful time.
Did you jump the gap?
No. They closed the gap jump right before we started in our class, because people keep crashing, and I
saw so many reels of people.
Yeah. So like the Gladiator, they're an awesome couple. I mean, the Jeep held up really well considering. He didn't realize that the gap jump was there, and he was like booking it with a Can-Am and then wasn't planning on it. And they say you have to be 40 miles an hour. Really, it's 45 to like 50 miles an hour. You need to be hitting that. And there's a really big turn right before it, so it's really hard to hit it straight. And a lot of even like limited cars were struggling to hit it straight. You need all those things to be able to clear that. And I'm a TJ with a 4.0 and big axles, and we're geared at 538s, which is great for rocks, but it's not like, we're not a high speed car. Like 60 is like kind of my max. No, I was not hitting that, and I didn't build. I believe in purpose built, and that Jeep was not built to do a gap jump.
So you mentioned there's other races. So is there like an off-road circuit? Like, is there more?
No, I'm actually super stoked to talk about this. So Ultra 4 is the king of hammers, but Ultra 4 has a whole series that people don't really follow. Like, there's some other big races like Crandon. It's a short course race in Crandon, Wisconsin. It's a total blast. Ultra 4 is a part of that. There's the NorCal Rock Race series, which is a short course series. Ultra 4 is that. They have regional races. So based off of like the part of the country you're in, like our races for West Coast are like New Mexico. There's races in California. There's some Nevada races. Vegas to Reno is a part of that. And this year, instead of having to do the whole course, they're going to do a 250-mile race for us, which I'm really stoked about. And then if you're on the East Coast, like basically Oklahoma and Missouri and all those guys over, that's like where they race. So they do like a Mid-America Outdoors, Disney Oklahoma. There's a whole bunch of other races that you can do on the East Coast. And then there's like, you have your West Coast or East Coast champion, and then like there's the overall. So there's a whole series for that, for just Ultra 4. And then there's the Best in Desert series, the Legacy series, Score series, which the Score races are usually down in like Mexico. But like the Mint 400's coming up soon. That race, there is like an Ultra 4 class, if you will. but they're labeled differently and it's not an Ultra 4 points race. So there's a whole lot of series. And if you want to get into racing, the legacy races are, I would say, a bit more accessible financially. The more races, entries are, they're under $1,000. I want to say they're anywhere from like $800 to $400. King of Hammers, to race it with qualifying and trackers, you're at like almost $4,000. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
a race like the Moore race, all in, is like under $1,000. It's a lot of money, but it's way more accessible than, say, racing King of Hammers. The Mint 400's coming up. I really want to race it. I usually track that race. We just found out that we don't have to. So I'm trying to figure out if I can get enough sponsorship stuff together, because for the class that I'll race, it's going to be like $1,500-$1,600 just for the entry fee. And then, you know, fuel and your chase fuel. And I thankfully have a lot of relationships where there's crews that will like chase for me, but it's an investment. So
how do you get the money for that?
Sponsors.
Yeah.
And I'm partnering with some race organizations where, you know, we're trying to get more women into racing. So they're supporting me by helping with like entries and stuff. It's one of the things that I'm like in my contracts, like especially with the way the economy is, not everybody is handing out cash in abundance, and there's only so much product that I need. So that's like one of the things that I'm doing, is saying like, okay, if you can't give me X amount of dollars like we need, can you cover a race entry? Because when a wheel company sponsors a race, they typically get entries. They don't always use them. So that's another way to like make things happen. There's a lot of different ways that I get pretty creative with my sponsorship relationships, because at the end of the day, this is a business. I've always treated it as a business, and yes, it's super fun and I'm so thankful to do what I do, but it's a business, it's expensive, and it needs to work both ways. Any way that you can make it so you're getting what you need and you're helping fill a need for that company, like you just got to get creative, especially right now. And those are just some of the ways that I do it.
So what is your day job?
This is what I do.
That's
I race.
Awesome. I wasn't sure if you were doing welding stuff, because you're really big into welding too. I saw you took classes and you're just welding a bunch of cool stuff.
Partnered with Lincoln Electric. I'm a part of the Lincoln Motorsports program. I have a lot of really cool stuff going on with them this year, doing welding demos and teaching at a ton of different expos that I can't announce all of them right now, but the Slorex Expo, which is Salt Lake Off-Road, I'll be doing trailside welding up there in 2 weeks. The Tread Expo, which will be here in June 21st, I believe, in St. George. And I have a 10x40 booth with my vehicles and welding demos and going over new products that Lincoln has. I'm a content creator. I fabricate, like I do some stuff for clients, but for the most part, I only have time for my stuff right now.
So I just got a rock hard 4x4 sport cage. It's a bolt-on.
Nice. Yeah, they're great guys. They're out of Nebraska.
I posted a reel actually just today with it. And Angie, Purple Haze, she has that same cage, but she welded it in.
Yeah, so it gives it more strength. I mean, a lot of times even with like bolt-on kits, like the TerraFlex long arm kit, there's a bolt-on and there's a weld-on. And if you're going to do it right, essentially, like you should weld it on because it makes it stronger. It's not technically needed, but it's an extra place of strength. But if you are going to have a failure on it, most likely it's going to be on your Jeep tub frame, because that's probably going to be weaker than the material that you're welding, or it's going to break like next to the weld. I would weld it in, but I would say more than anything too, make sure you put some sort of padding around it, because like when a lot of the times when I'm in my car with my cage, like everybody, especially in the influencer space, everybody's got a cage. It's cool. It's whatever. The factory cage is also extremely strong. I rolled my jail in my factory cage and it's fine. I think the biggest thing is how it's tied in is the biggest thing. I mean, with a sport cage, you're going to still have your factory cage, which I think you should leave it in if you're going to drive it on the road. Aftermarket cages are not intended for DOT use, and a lot of the aftermarket cages are not tied in a way that, like, you know, my race car is super loud, because like just even squeaky, it sounds like, oh my gosh, it's gonna fall apart, but it's not. It's because everything is so rigid, because it's tied in multiple places in my frame, not just like with a plate. Like it's very much tied in. I would rather see you in a rock hard cage with your factory cage, since you drive your Jeep everywhere. You'll get your little extra. and it's way safer than doing an aftermarket cage. I don't think if you drive it on the road that much, and I'm sure people will come for me, but I do crazy stuff in a stock cage, and everybody has their opinions, but I've actually had this conversation with a bunch of people, race or just, they own companies and they build off-road parts, and the cage is great, but there's so many variables. If you're going to be driving on the road heavily, like, I think the DOT is the way to go, and just have some sort of protection anywhere that you would possibly hit your head, because I've seen a lot of people get hurt because they want the cage and it's cool and it's sexy and it's safe, but like if your harness is not super tight and you roll, you're going to hit your head and you're going to hurt yourself. I wear a helmet most times when I'm not, and the one time I went without it, I didn't get hurt, but the internet roasted me. But I also built my cage so I have enough clearance, so like even if I do crash, I'm not super tight, like my head is not going to hit it because I built the car to fit me. But definitely make sure that you're protected on anything that, if you have extra metal there that isn't normally there. So just foam pad or whatever. Yeah. Like there's so many options out there.
What's the one Jeep mod you think's overrated?
Honestly, I think roll cages. I think roll cages, aftermarket roll cages for people that are driving on the road, I think are really like not a necessary thing. I think you shouldn't screw that. But I would say otherwise, I think roto packs for people, it drives me nuts when people have roto packs on their cars and they drive around with them on them all the time, because that's so bad for your roto packs. And like people like they want the look, sometimes they use it, sometimes they don't, but like if you're not using it, it should not be on your car, I think.
What's the one useful or you find the most useful?
It's kind of probably not the answer you want, but I think seat time. Like you can have the best tires, you can have big axles, you can have, $150,000 build. And I've seen that so many times. You get more abilities, you get more clearance, you get more power. But if you don't know how to drive, if you don't have seat time, if you don't know your vehicle and understand how to use it.
No, it totally makes sense. I get it.
Yeah, like just drive. Before I built my race car, it was 30-inch tires or 31-inch tires, open. And I drove that thing all over, and it's a manual and it's tiny, and it was so much fun to drive. And I just raced the King of Hammers on 33.5-inch tires, and I have big axles, so I have even less clearance. Like
and a manual, you said.
Yeah, it's a manual. I think seat time's the biggest thing. I think having a vehicle that is safe, prepped well, like nut and bolt, good tires are very helpful. Even the Fox 2.0s, those are a low-end shock, but they're super smooth. Somebody's like, I want to build a Jeep, and they're not like super into it, but they've got the bug. I would say 37, a TerraFlex long arm kit, or like the Rock Crawler, their long arm kit. I think Rock Crawler is the only coil that holds its spring rating and can last, especially if you have something heavy like a diesel or a 392. Beadlocks are great, but if you're going to drive a ton on the road, they require so much maintenance to be safe. And that's something, to me, like I've seen people get hurt. I've blown out a ring myself on the highway, and it is scary, and it's not safe, and they're not made for road use. So now there's so much great technology, like the bead grip. Method has a wheel, Vision now has a wheel. I'm sure KMC and other people have that technology. I don't run their wheels, so I don't know, but there's so many beadlock type wheels. Like it'll look like a beadlock, but it has an extra like lip on the inside, so it holds your wheel in better and you can air down more. But I've wheeled on non-beadlocks plenty of times. My first 6 months of wheeling, it was a faux beadlock. I didn't know what a beadlock was. I just thought it looked cool. And I was able to air down to 15 or so and be fine.
All right, fun rapid fire. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Favorite subject in school?
Gym. Yeah.
I think it'd be like auto shop or something.
No, I did not touch cars until 2020 when I started doing this.
Favorite movie genre?
I like comedy or war movies.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, especially like historical, like war movies, or
like Saving Private Ryan or something, or
yeah, I mean that's fine. Or I don't know, like I was a military spouse for over a decade, and Joe did his time and jumped out of airplanes for our country for a long time, and I just the military culture and just deployments and stuff and the sacrifice, like, I don't know, I just find it intriguing. So
go to lazy dinner. You have 6 kids,
other
so
than
I'm sure it's
ordering
pretty easy.
chili.
Oh, there
Chili
you
is
go.
a pretty, like, I make a really good chili. I'd say chili is probably one of the easiest things that I could do.
If you could take any celebrity on an off-road trip, who's riding with you?
I mean, he probably wouldn't fit very well, but maybe The Rock. He's pretty funny. He's obviously very strong.
You could take Kevin Hart instead. He'd definitely fit.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, what is Kevin Hart gonna do if we need help? Like, I mean, he makes me laugh for sure.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, them together would be something I would watch.
Kevin could fit in the back, I'm sure.
Totally.
So if your life had a theme song, what song would it be?
I have a couple, I would say. So Valuable is like my current anthem. Pacific Dub, Valuable is a killer song. My Send It song is When the Levee Break, and that's Led Zeppelin.
Nice.
Yeah. So, you should listen to it sometime. Like the opening part of it, it's like very much, it can get you in the groove to like do something
That's what
sketchy.
You're ready when you're...
Yeah. Valuable is just like a very good, like, I'm very big on like positivity and sticking with it and overcoming, and you know, it's great to have a cheerleader, but we have to kind of be our own sometime, and it's a good one of like, especially when you're doing something hard, to recognize like, oh yeah, I am all these things. So
that's awesome. So how do people stay, like, I want to know how you do in the 400 minutes or whatever. How do people stay up? You're racing, what you're doing, that sort of thing.
So you can always find me on all the socials at Send It Rubi, R-U-B-I. I have a website, Send It Nation, where you can get things like Send It for Jesus merch and other cool things. And we're going to be better about posting our race recaps on that this year, depending on the race.
Oh, that's good. You should definitely do that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm working on that. So it's hard because I'm a one-man band for like all of this stuff. All the content I create, I build the cars, I drive them. Joe's awesome, but it's not like, that stuff's not his thing. So, but yeah, the website. And then I'm always, especially if I'm at an event, just as long as we have service, and we're going to be using Starlink from here on out, so we'll have service. I'll do stories and let you know. And each race organization has its own tracking that they use. So, you know, the Mint will be racing tracks. So you can get live updates on that, which is not the system they use at Hammers. They use Yellow Brick at Hammers. So I'll post links so people can like follow along and see where we're at.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. We could have gone on longer. You're just very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Well,
all right, guys. Man, I could have kept going. Usually I try to keep these podcasts to like 20 minutes or less because I know attention spans are definitely less, at least for me anyway. But I could have kept going with that one because it's just so interesting, all the stuff that she's doing. Definitely check out her website. I'll post all the links below. I don't know about you guys, but King of Hammers definitely got me more into racing and off-road racing. So like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks, guys.